opportunity. I have something to say, but I'll do it at the end of it. So the credibility of the publication depends in part on how well the conflict of interest is handled during writing, peer review, and editorial decision making. And review is done for self-regulation by qualified members of the profession within the relevant field to maintain standards of quality, improve performance, and also provide credibility. So the conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal and professional interests are in competition. It compromises the ethical principles of the result and would result in criminal misconduct. So there's been a lack of uniform definitions for the conflict of interest disclosure, and then there's a confusion about what needs to be reported. This is the general feeling, and it has been under increasing scrutiny in the recent years and has got a lot of embarrassment to both publishers, editors, and the professional societies. The first disclosure of conflict of interest appeared in the New England Journal of Medicine in the early 1980s. Now, what are the author's commitments? The authors are responsible for disclosing all financial and personal relationships that might bias their work. To prevent ambiguity, authors must state explicitly whether potential conflicts do or do not exist, and should identify individuals who provide writing or other assistance and disclose the funding source for this assistance as well. The researchers must disclose potential conflicts to study participants and should state in the manuscript whether they have done so or not. Should not enter into agreements that interfere with their access to all the data and their ability to analyze them independently and to prepare and publish manuscripts. Should describe the role of the study sponsor, if any, in study design, collection, analysis, and interpretation of data, writing the report, and the decision to submit the report for publication. If the reporting source had no such involvement, that also should be stated by the author. Now, what's the commitment from the editors? They should avoid selecting external peer reviewers with obvious potential conflicts of interest. For example, those who work in the same department or in the institution as any of the authors. Authors often provide editors the names of persons who they feel should not be asked to review, and the authors should explain or justify their concerns that information is important to editors in deciding whether this should be honored or not, this request should be honored or not. The reviewers must disclose to the editors any conflicts of interest that could bias their opinions of the manuscript. Reviewers must not use the knowledge of the work before its publication to further their own interests. The editors must have no personal, professional, or financial involvement in any of the issues that they might judge. The editorial staff must not use information gained through working with manuscripts for their own private gain. Editors should publish the regular disclosure statements about potential conflicts of interest related to the commitments of the journal staff. The most practical tool available today is the disclosure of financial conflicts of interest at the outset of the submission process, during the editing process, and finally to the readers. The author primarily responsible for the integrity of the data and which is being discussed, so I'm not going into the details of it. The conduct of the science can be influenced by the biases introduced by conflict of interest, whether they are financial, professional, intellectual, or fueled by the academic competition. The potential for bias is real, whether or not the researchers believe those conflicts of interest influence their conduct. The financial conflicts of interest, as an example, in exchange for his or her research, an investigator could receive costly agents, equipment, reimbursement of personal time, reimbursement for time spent on the project, income in excess of normal salary, stock or equity in the research sponsor's company, or possibilities for future research funding. Non-financial conflict of interest could be career advancement, publishable results, service to patients or students, fame, power, family, and friendships. if the mission or expectation of the institution is not compatible with his or her personal values. Conflict of commitment. Some academics form companies to commercialize the inventions or the discoveries while continuing academic work in the same area. The time and effort outside of the academic institution will conflict with commitments to the institution. There is a distinction between conflict and irresponsible conduct. Personal interest does not mean that he or she is acting irresponsibly. So to minimize the conflicts of interest, it is in the best interest of the community of science and the individual scientist. If the conflicts cannot be avoided, should at least be disclosed openly. The institution and any other parties with a significant interest should be made aware of the extent and the nature of the conflict. Conflicts of interest and the strategies for dealing with these conflicts are evolving, considering the potential for misperceptions of a researcher's motives. It is best to assume that good intentions are not adequate.